It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Welcome to The New Next, a podcast that addresses current events and how they will impact the future.
Reuters has a new article called Europe's Power Play, the Nuclear Age. Europe's atomic reactors are getting old. Can they bridge the gap to an emissions-free future? You know, kudos to the person that created the visual illustration at the top. It's pretty incredible. But when you really go down into it, it's very interesting. So, you know, Europe's really in a energy transition. And what we talked a lot about on this podcast is that their fossil fuel, natural gas issues might come in more in 2024. Last year, it was praying for a warm winter, which they had. I believe this winter is supposed to be much more cold. It's forecasted to be extremely cold here in the U.S., so expecting that our natural gas prices and therefore our energy costs will spike and increase is a big deal. And people in Europe are really questioning whether if they can extend the lives of these aging nuclear reactors to maintain the supply of energy through this. So it's just, there's a lot of disagreement between the regulators, companies, and the governments on how long these plants can safely be kept running. But they really need them now. You know, Europe, it's just, it's interesting. The theme for this podcast, it's interesting. So nuclear currently provides about a tenth of Europe's energy, and this depends by different countries. So France, which has been a huge proponent for nuclear energy for a long time, gets 32% of its electricity from nuclear. The European Union as a whole, it's 9. Second highest is Sweden, and third highest is Slovakia. Sweden's at 20%. Slovakia's at 21%. So they're the second highest. Slovenia and Bulgaria, a lot of these former Soviet era or near Soviet era still have nuclear there. Belgium, Czech Republic, Hungary, Romania. Ukraine is one that's not in the EU, but I believe is in Europe, and at least Kyiv and the western part of Ukraine is typically more aligned with Western European values. But, if you end nuclear, and in terms of percentage, pretty much all of these countries, except for Czech Republic, have seen nuclear as percentage of their overall energy demand decrease from the 80s or 90s levels. And then you have countries like the Netherlands, who were pretty much non-existent, really fossil fuel driven. Germany too, which probably has about half the nuclear generation capacity they did in terms of the overall pie since the 90s. So renewables are picking up steam, but not to the level that I think we would want. And there's really not a great understanding how you can feasibly reduce nuclear and ever hit a low emissions free future. So, a lot of countries don't have any nuclear too. I think we talked a little bit about the nuclear ship that's mobile, that Russia will bring sometimes up to like oil places or disaster areas. And I think mobile reactors are probably going to be a big opportunity for the future. If you can make them small modular nuclear reactors and then also put them on either a ship or pieced together in skids like that can be trucked. That's some crazy disruptive technology where you can literally put energy where you need it as long as there's river access or sea access, which basically includes the majority of the world's population that lives within 10 miles of a river. So it's I did that calculation one time. I think it's at something crazy like 90% of people. So most of the nuclear reactors were built in the 70s and 80s, were commissioned to last about 30 years. 95 of those reactors, about 90%, have passed or are nearing the end of their original lifespan. So really there's this debate is how long will they last? And two reactors, one in Finland and Slovakia, started up in 2023. And 32 of these, including the oldest reactor in the EU, the Netherlands Borstel, is 50 years old. So, interesting times. And will it be possible? This article on Reuters has a great, illustrations that really talks about how nuclear reactors run. And I don't know. It's just there's nuclear power is possible without uranium, but with thorium itself is, I believe, a limiting, self-balancing reactor. So, as it goes through the reaction process, it turns into an element that also cools itself. And I've really not fully understood why this isn't more of a thorium-based nuclear reactor, why this isn't more of a relatively used thing in the world. So maybe we'll have a shift in what nuclear means, and we might be able to force to do that because elements like thorium are much more available. It's one of the most commonly present minerals in the earth crust. And whether or not we can break these down to even levels that can run cars and vehicles for personal consumption. So it's been, the whole world's in a transition from technology to what we believe and what we don't, but also these energy elements. And nuclear has been listed as the savior for everything over the last couple of years, and I don't really think that that's necessarily an accurate thing. I'm an all of the above guy. I'm not for putting all your eggs in one basket. And when it comes to energy, you need natural gas as a backup and a bridge and a starter mechanism for a lot of these plants, whether that be renewable. You need electricity to operate pumps. There's a lot of potential scenarios here. France still runs the EU bloc. They have 56 reactors. UK has a second with 9. Ukraine, which is not an EU country, but close to that, has 15. And it's there's a lot of answers to be worked out here. So, it's nuclear energy takes a lot less material and is more efficient. But, we should really we're going to really have to have more of a intelligent debate on this. I'm for everything, and I'm for new solar. There's a lot of very interesting solar technology coming out, and also just natural ways of looking at how things, how light can be refracted in a more efficient way to increase, like solar utilization of the sun. So, geothermal too is a solution for a lot of cities that people overlook. Whether that be, pretty much like Hawaii is a good example. You're literally living on volcanoes, and it's a debate of whether or not it's wind and solar versus coal and fossil fuels.